Hey, Rick, you know what's awesome?
What's that, Billy?
Canadian comedy, you hoser.
Go, 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 go.
Oh, man. So it's always been there, but I remember like not too long after we started the show, we were talking, flipping back and forth, and probably the Facebook bots. I don't know what they were trying to sell me, but something popped up in a suggested video from me, and it was the original SCTV skit where they're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about the mouse and the beer.
Yep.
And I remember, because, dude, that's a classic skit. It's like,
Yeah.
but I don't know that I had seen it all the way through in such a long time, and just the way that they, like, they're real. They're just they're they're bickering brothers in the basement. It's just
Yep.
so natural and funny, and just, and I was just crying laughing at,
Yeah,
it's
man.
like talking about raising the mouse, and like trying to figure out how many cases of beer, like how many beers is in 12 cases or whatever, and like
Yep.
he's like, oh my god, I was cracking up.
So
So
before Beavis and Butthead, before Bill and Ted, there was Bob and Doug McKenzie, man. I
mm-hmm.
mean, they were weirdly a phenomenon. Uh, really different from the other ones, but just as stupid. you know, uh, it's funny because my wife, we always think about this because um, she went to a school function back when she was a senior in high school. It's like a beta convention or whatever. And there was two dudes there dressed up like the McKenzie brothers. I mean, so, and my wife knew what that was, and it just kind of shows you that kind of impact of SCTV, all the shows we were watching at that point. I actually saw Strange Brew before I actually saw any SCTV or really paid any attention to it.
I was gonna say, well, I remember when I was a kid, because it was probably like, because it was '83, so yeah, we would have gotten cable TV. It would have been probably on the guide, and I do remember. So I would have been like 7 years old, looking at the guide and looking, because their mouths are cocked in opposite directions, and I remember like trying to do that, and just thinking they look goofy with their little sock hats and stuff. I'm like, what is up with these guys? you know and
uh,
but yeah, dude, so I've been wanting to watch it, but it's, you know I don't own it, and I don't even remember if I looked it up on streaming, but I found it the other day, just at a thrift store. It was brand new, unopened, still in the cellophane.
wow.
And but it was one of those early ones, like the cardboard clamshell with the little flip over. So
Yep.
like, and so yeah, I popped that bad boy into there last night, and then set about just cracking up for like a straight
Yeah,
hour and
man.
a half. But as a grown up, or not as a grown up, well, watching it from a more technical perspective, there's just a whole lot more buried in there than,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it's a stupid buddy comedy, kind of murder mystery adventure romp. But whenever you don't understand the concept of meta and self-awareness,
Right.
it
Right.
just it's just more weird. But when you watch it with that kind of in mind, you're like, this is brilliant. Like, this is really funny.
So, in case people that are listening, if you don't know what we're talking about the McKenzie brothers movie called Strange Brew. I don't think we ever said what we're talking about, but the McKenzie brothers is Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, and they've created these characters where, I mean, they're Canadian, but they're Canadians making fun of Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the best way to describe it, or redneck Canadians, I guess you would say.
And they're just two brothers who are drinking beer in their parents' basement, and it's kind of like Wayne's World. In fact, Wayne's World
Yeah,
lifted a
very much.
lot from
Yep.
Strange Brew. But they're just in their parents' basement, they're making a show, and they're just basically they're just talking about beer and drinking beer and trying to figure out how to get free beer. And they've got other stuff in there, but that is the core. Like Wayne's World was rock and roll, the McKenzies are just all about beer.
Yep.
And
Beer and donuts. I
beer and
mean,
yep.
so every time, when they go to the secretary and they bribe her with donuts,
Yep. Well, and the security camera comes on and they've got like their donuts that are there. She's like eyeballing them, like.
Oh,
But
so great. And of course it opens up with going back to the SCTV kind of skit where they're at the Great White North,
mhm.
and they're doing their little skit. And like you said, it's the whole meta thing, right? Because they're on the screen and they start going into the skit about the mouse in the bottle, and you hear a voice go, "Hey, they did this on their TV show. This is a ripoff." So
Yeah.
so it ends up that you're actually in a theater watching this as, this is on the screen, like I said, the whole meta idea. And it shows Bob and Doug are actually in the theater watching this movie that they made with other
Mhm.
people in the crowd. How about the movie they made?
The the movie that they made was surprisingly better than a lot of independent films I've seen. He's
Uh,
like, whoa, you're an alien. Like,
and he picks up the Statue of Liberty. He goes, "It's Statue of Liberty," and you hear him go, "Psst, act." Oh.
he gets the little Nerf gun and shoots him, and he's sitting in the van, and he's like, "Back off,
take off, eh?"
Oh man. Well, it's
and they do the scene where the van's like flying, but they show it like coming down, and they just took it to like a car shop to have them put up on the rack and put like a fire extinguisher underneath it, so some smoke could come down and just start letting it down, but you can see the roof
Yep.
of the shop over it. Hilarious.
So before we get too deep into it, there is actually a story in the story. So what happens is they shoot their movie, and it pisses everybody off. And to keep from getting beat up in the alley, Bob hands over their beer money to a guy who's got disappointed children. And so they can't go buy beer to take home for their dad. Yeah. So they go home, and their dad tells them to come home to go to in the morning. You need to come home with beer no matter what. So then they decide to pull their mouse in the bottle scheme on the beer store, and the beer store tells them to take it up with the brewer. So they go to the brewer, and they're like, "There's a mouse in this bottle. You need to give us some beer." And instead, the brewer gives them a job.
Yeah.
And their job is to like inspect all the bottles for mice, make sure there's no mice in the bottles. Well, while they are doing this and drinking on the job, like, because they just got the coolest job ever, come to find out there's this intrigue. There's this murder mystery thing where the
original
owner has died.
Company's been killed, or died, yeah.
And the daughter's set to take it over, and she's trying to be bought out by this other guy and this other guy.
And Mount Cedar.
I was going to say, we were going to talk about this other guy here in a second, because I didn't want to. but you've got this. He's got
teeth that makes Freddie Mercury go, "Man, that's some big teeth."
But the funny thing is, you've got this kind of, and serious is in very, very limp quotation marks here. You've got this sort of serious subplot to the fact that Bob and Doug are just so dumb and drunk. Yeah. And they're so stupid, they don't even realize that what's going on is serious. They're just kind of like bopping through their day. Yep. And whenever things are serious, they're just like, "Oh, well, let's go see if we can find some beer." Or, like it's like they just don't take anything seriously, and it frustrates everybody around them. And so if you got to say that there's actually some kind of a true plot, that's it, is because they inadvertently, by accident, just kind of throw like screw everybody's plans up. but Max von Sydow is that movie more than anyone he ever won an award for, Golden Globes, critical acclaim. Not that proves his chops, because to be
Yeah.
able to hold a straight face in
Yeah.
that room with those people and just be like, still kind of be a menacing bad guy among it all, that's talent right
Well, I tell you,
there.
if you really watch closely through the movie, there's a lot of scenes where they're trying not to crack up with each other. They'll just do a simple little line. You can tell that it's totally different from what they scripted. And you'll see Dave Thomas kind of do it kind of thing,
Yeah,
which adds to the character, but you can tell that he wouldn't expected that. So,
of course.
man,
Well,
the whole idea of they come home, they don't have any beer, and they crack over the ones that are left, and they're drinking them, and the dad's like, "Save all those beers for me." And what they have done, they've got a dog named Hosehead who's got a stripe down his back. He's a black dog with a white stripe down his back, and they pour like half a beer in his dog bowl for him to drink. And when the dad says, "Save one of those beers for me," they start chugging the ones they got. The only beer that's left is what's left in the bowl. And they try to pour it back into a glass, and it's got all kinds of food, dog chunks and stuff in it. Here, you go take it to him. I'm not taking it to him. You take it to him. Oh my God. Dad, Bob broke your beer.
Like I said, I was sitting there just crying last night. I'm sitting there watching this, and again, just watching it from a technical, like, Rick Moranis has always been one of my favorite people. It's just, there's certain actors, celebrities, there's just people that you just, I don't know if get is the right word, but they just can do no wrong in your book. You know what I mean? It's like, he's funny when he's just awesome. No matter what he's doing, he's hilarious. And he's kind of just got that, well, I mean, I'm going to say it's just talent, but he's, it's like, he's a nerdy, dorky looking dude, but when he's on screen, he attracts your eye. Like, you can't help but watch him. And when he says stuff, you listen, because it's just awesome.
Yeah.
But, so this is just one of those movies, like, again, because you're 1983, so you're like a year and a half away from Ghostbusters.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, is a Rick Moranis movie more than a Bill Murray movie, because Bill Murray is on screen. Yes, Bill Murray's on screen and he says things in order to get attention. Rick Moranis is on screen. He just commands attention by being the character, Lewis.
Yeah.
He's just awesome. But it's, in Strange Brew, there's just so much goofiness. One of my favorite ones is like when they go to the asylum and they like put them in the padded room, the straitjackets, and he's like, "You stay on your side." He's like,
"Don't you cross that line right there? I don't see a line."
It's like steamroller, and they're supposed to be like, they're in great danger, right? Like, they're in trouble. They've got people trying to kill them. They're wanted for murder and kidnapping, like all this stuff, and like they can't take anything seriously for even a second. And this is just one of those things, and that's one of those ones where they both cracking up laughing while they're filming that too, because they're steamrolling each other.
It's great, man. Well, the scene leading up to that, the scene where I mean, you can go through every scene of this movie, really, but the whole thing where they cut their brake lines, right? They got the two kegs in the back, which actually has the new owner and the guy that works for her, that they're real tight. And they put Doug and Bob into the van. They knocked them out. They put them in there and they wake them up and say, "Hey, we need you to do a delivery for us." And they they're driving and their brakes fail and they just go off into this lake. And luckily, one of the kegs flies out. That person ends up being okay, put in the hospital. And the owner, she's in a one that's out in the water. And
it's the hockey player and Bob.
The hockey
and Doug.
Player, jumps in to save her. She gets out, and then the other three of them, you think they've died. So they got the cops waiting.
Well, and they have a sun. Like, the cops are all sitting there looking sad because there's no recovering the van.
Yeah.
And the sun starts setting, and they start playing the sad music, and then it's just like intermission.
Yep.
and then it cuts out,
For
and
like
then
5 seconds, it just says intermission, and it goes right back into the movie.
and then it's still sad because
Yeah.
like they haven't been found yet. And then they cut in with Jaws music with scuba divers.
Yeah, they go down to the van, and they go up to the driver's side window, and they look in there, and they're all got little bottles of beer. And they're drinking beer underwater to stay alive. And the scuba the scuba diver knocks on the window. He rolls his window down and shows him his driver's license.
Yeah. They arrest them for attempted murder and kidnapping. and they keep bickering, and they go to jail.
Yeah.
And Doug's like, dude, he's like you're a real cute looking, you're gonna be he's like, well, what are you gonna be doing? He's like, I'm gonna be out selling smoke.
I'm gonna be in the lunchroom selling cigarettes, selling smokes. I love it when they're in the courtroom too, and he gets the nosebleed. The only way they get it to stop is they give him 2 bullets, and he puts the bullets in his nose. Rick Moranis makes him laugh, and he snorts, and the bullets take off.
Dude,
so stupid.
So stupid, but again, it's just one of those like, well, she's like, this is your attorney. And the lawyer comes up, and it's like a paparazzi scene, and it's one of those moments where just for about half a second, and I'm not even saying like this movie's going to turn serious. Like it's already like if you think this movie's gonna turn serious, but they have some sort of cinematography there where it's like, okay, well, here's where we're actually going to lay out some exposition. You're in trouble. We got it. But instead, it's like, oh, it's paparazzi because it's famous. And he's like, I'll handle this. And then the dude like straight up just beats the hell out of all of the reporters. Just kicks the crap out of them.
Like it turns into full martial arts, man. And then you get the one girl that jumps over. It's like, yeah. I love it because he's got her, and he's just going, wham, wham,
he just
wham.
beats her up hard.
Oh, yeah.
Bob's like, man, we're gonna make sure we pay him on time.
Oh, so ridiculous.
But yeah, they can't stay straight. So anyway, they get sentenced to the asylum, and then they end up
yeah, they end up getting put under the watch of Max von Sydow.
Mm-hmm.
In the loony bin, they call it the whole movie. So what's going on here is they're putting chemicals into the beer and making these people at the insane asylum drink it, and it gives them subjects. It gives them control over it, which is all done through a synthesizer.
Yeah, he's like, if I play this kind of music, they.
Which is awesome because they get to the keyboard. Doug and Bob get to the keyboard and start going, dur, 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 and it makes them all just start fighting. Oh, and it for some reason it makes all the loonies get into space age hockey uniforms and go play a game of hockey.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, when he's like, here, we're gonna do the test, and they push, they turn on the stuff, they push the button, and all the guys just like go put on black and white stormtrooper outfits with hockey sticks, and then they go play hockey in like the cold room of the brewery. And he's like, oh, my plan's almost complete. And you're like, what kind of plan is this? But as it turns out, it's a pretty good plan. But
it's again, it's jabbing at Canada again, right? With the humor. I mean, yeah, there's hockey. It's got to be hockey,
Well, and then again, Bob and Doug, so they're in that straight jackets, and then the guy comes in, and the whole point, like this whole thing, is they accidentally, because they thought it was like a new wave 7-inch single. But there's actually a floppy disk of them murdering the old owner.
Yeah.
And Doug took the disc, and then he left it with Hoserhead at the house, or he left it on the counter. And so they're trying, before they kill Bob and Doug, they're trying to get this disc back.
Right.
And so they're trying to torture them. So the guy brings him into the shock treatment room, and then he gets a phone call, and he like leaves the shock treatment room, and then Bob and Doug are in there like, it's my turn, and they're like shocking each other with the shock.
My turn, do me next. Oh man, well we gotta go. Oh, we gotta come back though and do my turn. I mean, they're literally shocking each other for fun.
Yeah. Oh man. And again, that's the whole like as things progress, and then the plan is gonna go the way it needs to go, but then she gets away. Everybody gets away before they get recaptured, and the bad guys catch them one more time, and it's over with. So they put Bob and the heiress into the tank, into the vat of beer, and they're gonna drown them. And in one of the most human scenes that Rick Moranis has ever been in, the beer's coming up, and Doug's not there, and he's with this chick that's not his girlfriend, and he's just like, man, I always thought if I was gonna drown in a vat of beer, it was gonna be awesome, but this is not awesome. This sucks.
This sucks.
She's just like, of course it sucks. Like,
and I love it when the beer gets about waist high, and she goes, "It's suddenly got warm in here," and he goes, "I didn't notice anything."
After the effects of the tranquilizer earlier, like in the movie, wear off, and he's like laying there, and he's like, "Oh man, what happened?" She's like, "Oh, I saved you." He's like, "Oh, you're pretty nice." He's like, "I wish I didn't have puke breath. I'd kiss you."
I'd kiss you.
So we got Bob stuck in the vat. We got Doug on a mission, but they're too far away. They need to stop the Oktoberfest beer from getting drunk by the people, so that
they're going to send a whole truckload of beer to Oktoberfest that's all been contaminated with this chemical, so they can start brainwashing people and have them under their control. Which I don't know if, I guess maybe from a Canadian standpoint, but are people that would go to Oktoberfest the people you really want control over? I'm just saying.
Right.
But, well, you got the part where they go back to save Rick Moranis, and the hockey player's like, stand back, because when I open this valve, it's gonna blow. And he undoes it and nothing happens. And they look in there, and the girl sticks her head out. She says, "I can't believe it. He drank it all." And they look in there, and that vat that he's in, dry. And he's like, he's the size of Godzilla. He's like, "Oh man, I gotta pee so bad I can taste it." And then he belches, and it knocks the whole front of the vat off.
Well,
Doug goes in there to pull him out, and he's like, "Oh, don't touch me there."
Well, they also need to they need to stop the people from drinking, so they send Hoserhead.
They drive home. They get all the cops to follow me. "Hey, okay, we'll go there, but we got to stop at my house first. I got an idea." And they get Hosehead to come out, and they got a map. And this dog's not even looking. He's just looking off. He's a normal dog. So look, all right, Hosehead, look, if you got to take a left right here on east, you got to take the off ramp. But the dog's not even looking. I mean, he's just like, no, look here. He said, if you get there, he said, if you make it there, you can have all the beer and all the sausages you can eat. That dog just takes off.
He flies like Superman.
He runs down the street and takes off flying. And I just die every time.
Dude.
Man. It is so funny to see this skunk striped dog flying through the air for beer and sausages.
So, and again, I don't know if I ever told you this. But dude, every dog I've ever had loves beer. So like, I'm a loving drinking beer sort of dude, right? So I had this dog. His name was Marley. And the dude liked beer, and we used to have people over at our house like every day or every other day because I, just the industry I worked in, and I worked nights and had a lot of friends. So one time we were having this barbecue and everybody's drinking beer, and he would knock over your bottle and like lap it up, and then whenever you realize, it's so he was doing that. We had a lot of people and nobody was paying attention, and somebody was like, "Hey man, what's wrong with your dog?" And I look over at him, I'm like, "Hey, come here." And like, kind of, yeah. It's like, "You've been drinking, haven't you?" He's kind of like, I was like, give me 5. And he hops up and he falls backwards and does not try to like get up. He just kind of like lays on his back. And so I'm cracking up. I'm like, "Dude," it's like, "go get some water and go pass out." And dog hops up. He goes and drinks, like just chugs down a whole bunch of water, and then goes lays down in the shade in the backyard. And then like 2 hours later, he wakes up, goes and drinks another bunch of water, and then like kind of shakes it off, and immediately goes and knocks over somebody's beer. He like starts drinking again. I'm like, "Oh, you dog." But yeah, you tell a dog they can have all the beer and sausages they want.
Right. Yeah, of course he crash lands in Oktoberfest and everybody freaks out, "Oh, it's a skunk." So they all run out. And when Doug and Bob show up and they go in there, that police officer's like, "I don't think you want to go in there. There's a huge skunk in there." And they're like, "Yeah, we got it." So they save the day, and they got the floppy disk. It's got the video on it. And they turn it into to the officials. And then Bob and Doug say, "Hey, so what's really wrong with this beer? I mean, shouldn't, do you think that we are to take it and like dispose of it?" So you know what they're going to do? They're going to take it back home.
Of course.
Who cares if it's tampered? We can still drink it.
Yeah, as long as the keyboard doesn't making them do stuff, then they're fine. Oh man, like I said, it's just like going home, and then comparing it to something like Wayne's World. I'd never really. I mean, I knew that they were or didn't exist in a vacuum, but it was almost surprising me how alike Wayne's World is.
Yeah,
just
very much.
in the like even in the meta stuff where they kind of just like wink
Yep.
wink nod at the camera and stuff, and you're like, which I mean a lot of
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live stuff does, so it wasn't like that, but it was still just like, wow, this is really, I mean, it's kind of bordering on but
Yeah. It brought a smile to my face to revisit it, man. I absolutely love this movie. It's just every scene I'm just cackling at something, and yeah, like you said, it's just it's an old friend,
But again, like I said, you got, I mean, Rick Moranis is a year and a half away from Ghostbusters, and then like he was
in everything.
He was in everything for a while there. We watched Little Shop of Horrors not too long ago. That's I think that's an underrated masterpiece too. I mean, you've got Steve Martin, you've got just so much good stuff going on. You got Bill Murray in a cameo. It's but yeah, and then of course another one, we said the Canadians, because, and we won't go like deep into it because we've actually done John Hughes, but a while back we were watching Uncle Buck, a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And John Candy's another one of those that's just like, when he's on screen, he's just hilarious. And it's another John Hughes, but like the things that he says and the way that he says it and stuff, and sometimes you're like, man, it's just really clever writing, and then you find out he was ad-libbing. It's like whenever he's talking to Catherine O'Hara at the airport in Home Alone, and he's just like talking about all of the polka stuff and that whole just his whole story, and like she's just kind of standing there looking at him with like her eyebrows raised, but in reality it's because she does not know how to respond because she's got no line. He's just keeps talking, and she's just kind of like
he's rolling. And they work together. I mean, they were on SCTV together, so it's like you should be used to this, right?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's so much that. I think it's just more like sometimes again you're just kind of in the presence of greatness, and they're in the middle of
Right.
something that's gonna. I mean, you're just like, this is awesome. I don't have a
Yeah.
line. I'm just gonna hold fast and wait for him to finish because I got nothing. You know. Which, by the way, have you seen Schitt's Creek?
I have not.
Okay, take it from me.
Oh yeah.
Watch it.
I've been meaning to. It's just
It's
I just haven't had a chance to jump on it yet.
yeah. Obviously, it came highly recommended.
Yeah.
But Eugene Levy, his son, is hilarious, and he's one of the main writers. Like he's a creator. And then Catherine O'Hara, which
Yeah.
she's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
she's just amazing. Whether she's serious or whether she's comedic, whatever
She
she's
do it
doing
all.
is awesome. So, but yeah,
Yep.
that show is brilliant. Like we're about
Yeah.
most of the way done with the second season now, and it's got I think 5 seasons, whatever. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about John Candy. I mean, The Great Outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Summer Rental, which I've always loved. I mean,
Just
what's that movie with him and Eugene Levy together? What was it? Where they were security cops, you know,
yeah,
security
yeah.
guards.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh man, we went to theater and seen it. Dang, can't think of it.
But no,
But
so, like
we
you
went
said,
we went and seen that those two together, man. I mean, that was a great combination.
mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, Summer Rental, and like that was when my dad would just crack up every time he thought about him, like
Oh yeah.
with the hot feet. You know? Again, the Great Outdoors. There's so many great lines in that because
yeah.
you know it's hard to imagine John Candy playing the straight man to Dan Aykroyd because that's a flip.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Dan Aykroyd's very, you know, Danny Aykroyd's hilarious. Don't get me wrong, but he's hilarious by playing a straight man. And John Candy's kind of the goofy guy. So whenever they flip that on Great Outdoors, and John Candy's kind of the family man, just trying to get out, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie is so great. I think the teenage daughter in that's the same girl from Uncle Buck, isn't it?
It's possible.
I think so.
It's very possible. Joe Flaherty too. I mean, you know, again, that whole SCTV group.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch on to it. It was almost like it wasn't quite Saturday Night Live, so I didn't know really what to make of it because it was more. They already had established their own characters that were in these skits versus Saturday Night Live could be current event kind of stuff, right? So until I went back and started watching from the beginning, did I really catch on and thought, you know what, this show is pretty dang brilliant.
Yeah, I need to go back. I've only ever really seen SCTV and fits and starts when it was on like late night TV and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but I've never actually just sat and watched it. Like, well, even like Saturday Night Live, it's kind of funny because I remember in the early '90s when Saturday Night Live was probably at about its funniest. You know, whenever it had Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, you know, that Victoria Jackson, Phil Hartman, that whole cast, and everybody was decrying how it was not as funny as it had been in the 70s with, you know, that original cast. But the thing is, Saturday Night Live's always done this, and it didn't necessarily it wasn't even dependent on the cast because sometimes they've got an awesome cast and then just the jokes didn't land.
Right.
Or whatever. Like that season that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was on. It was just horrid. But look at the lineup. It's awesome. Like everybody in there is awesome.
Well, when it first started, though, I mean, till they brought in Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo, these guys. Before that, I tell you, I mean, so you know, we complain about that '90s setup. They weren't as funny as the '70s. Yeah, but they were funnier than Saturday Night Live before they got Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo. Because
of course. Oh yeah. Well, that's what I mean, though, is because that's not. But in the '90s, you know, it was that
Oh
was
yeah,
like a gold. That was a great time. And then of course all those movies were just popping out.
nonstop.
But then, you have this little one where you get John Candy and Rick Moranis together in Spaceballs,
Right.
and Spaceballs is one of my favorite movies ever. I
It's
think
great.
because like it sends up so many classic space movies,
Yeah.
but it is in and of itself a good movie. Like
Yeah.
the it's got a it's I mean it's got a good plot. The special effects are top notch. It's got an awesome cast. The jokes all land. There's nothing
Yep.
about Spaceballs that is like I compared it. We were talking about it on Scary Dad the other day. It's not like Scary Movie where it's just like fart jokes and every now and then a
Yeah.
Wayans brother's just gonna fall out of the rafters for no reason. Like it's
Right. Yeah.
like
It's Mel Brooks. I mean, That's the difference between your comedies, right? It's like there's Zucker brothers, and then there's the people pretending to be the Zucker brothers. Then
mm-hmm,
there's Mel Brooks. Then there's all the other spoof people that are out there. That I mean, it's just not the same. And
right.
nobody does it better than Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's a testament. So let's not talk too much about it because it could almost be an episode that we could.
I was gonna say, well, no. I was just gonna mention that, like, but that's when comedy gold strikes. It's whenever you've got
Yes.
both of those in the same movie.
Right.
And again, and I'm not gonna belabor Spaceballs, but just one of those like they're not even in the same scenes together. Like
Right.
but they're in the same movie, and you're like, awesome, like,
Right.
but
No, and then that's what makes it work too, because from scene to scene, you're getting those people that are that kind of pull
mhm,
versus, just being in a scene every once in a while. The other scenes you're just kind of like, eh.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's just so much. There's so much good stuff that was coming out of those comedy shows, and again, you have your Ghostbusters. That's a Saturday Night Live. It's not a Saturday Night Live. It's Ivan Reitman, but you've got all those Saturday Night Live alumnus coming out of there,
Right. Yep.
and then you add Rick Moranis on it, and he just kills it. He just crushes it. Louis Tully is awesome.
Yeah.
He's so funny. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids again.
Sure.
Just, and that's another one where like he's playing serious, but he's just so endearing that But John Candy in Vacation, where he's only in it for like 2 minutes, but
but it stands out. I mean, and Armed and Dangerous, that's the name of the movie.
That was the one.
Yeah. Because there's a scene in it where he stops a big trucker, right? It's like, sir, I hate to stop you, but I really need to confiscate your vehicle, and I've got to chase that car. And he goes, well, climb on in here, Slim. He's talking to John Candy. And he just starts running through stuff. He's like, man, he said, this truck's pretty solid. What are you hauling? He said, rocket fuel.
He's like, oh, no.
Exactly. It's like, oh, maybe we should be running over stuff. Yeah, great stuff, man.
And those movies where they commandeer vehicles, and all those ones. What movie was it where they're trying to commandeer a vehicle, but it was from Charles Grodin, and he's like, "Give me your car." He's like, "No." He's like,
oh,
please, no.
Yeah, Charles Grodin, man. I mean, he's kind of his own thing, Yeah, man. If you folks out there are listening, if you have not seen Strange Brew, you got to check it out. It's just hilarious.
Well, too, I think just the conversation that we had here, like it's going to open up a lot because my wife and I have been watching Schitt's Creek,
yeah,
which is Catherine O'Hara, like,
yeah.
But she was asking me, she's like, I was like, "You're going to come watch the movie with me?" She's like, "Well, what are you watching?" I was like, "Strange Brew." She's like, "What is it?" I was like, "Oh, it's this guy's from SCTV." She didn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
And then I was like, it's kind of like Wayne's World where they're doing a show in their basement, and but it's all about like beer and hockey. And she's like, she mentioned something. She goes, kind of funny how like Mike Myers and Dana Carvey fell out because Dana Carvey mentioned that Mike Myers got the Austin Powers idea from Dana Carvey. she's like, maybe Wayne's World 2. It's like, well, I don't think you could be that blatant.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah,
but it, like, that's pretty close. I mean,
yeah.
the thing is, we talked about buddy comedies before. It is really hard. Like, you have to have good writers, but it's
Well,
really hard to, like,
it's the equivalent of giving Lenny and Squiggy their own movie.
yeah.
That's really what this is. These guys are oblivious to anything around them except that they're in their own little bubble, just like Bill and Ted, just like,
Hmm.
I mean, Beavis and Butthead are just an extreme version of,
Of,
of the McKenzie brothers.
yeah, pretty much.
Because the McKenzie brothers are that dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just want to watch them be dumb for hours. You're just
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, next time you go to the movie theater, take you a big jar of moths. And when the movie gets to the part that you really love, open it up and all the moths will fly up to the window, eh? And they'll block out the picture so you can't see it. You can demand your bunny back. I mean, that's the kind of ideas they have.
Well, too, the mouse in the bottle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's an old sketch, but just like the trouble you're gonna go through to get a baby mouse, put him in the bottle, feed him for however long until he grows, so
Till
that
he
you
can't
can
get back out.
to where you take him down to the brewery and be like, give me some free beer. You're not like, oh, my health, like, give me some money, I've got a lawsuit. You're just like, hey, I found this mouse, give me some beer. It's like you say, it's very Beavis and Butthead,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's just I see so many shows that were so influenced by this movie, and you wouldn't even know it unless you see it. How even the fact of the scene where the dad comes back, the whole video game thing, right, where it's got everybody's information in the video game, and the dad comes back from the dead, and he starts slinging words up on the wall, and it says Oktoberfest, stop them, and then it says good effects, eh?
Great special effects, eh?
Just so fun, man.
Yeah,
And
they're like, and we did a pretty solid play by play, but it's like you say, it's just there's just so much. Like here in town, we have a morning radio show that they do the Jelly Report, and it's for cops, but it's like they have samples of them being like it's a jelly. It's jelly donut.
it's a jelly.
It's just like one of those things, like, well, and like if you hear something that's sampled and then you hear it in context, it like gets your attention. It's like,
right.
It's like I knew. Wait.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, like I said, they're talking to the secretary, and they go, and he slats that donut out and gives it to her. And like
he pulls it out of his pocket. That's one of those things. Like, I need to know some extremely sensitive information about your company. And she's like, well, I'm not at liberty to say. He reaches in his jacket pocket and pulls out a donut. And she's like, well.
It's not just a donut, though. It's a donut with chocolate glaze on top with sprinkles on it. And it was in his pocket.
she's like, well, here's all the information you need.
But that leads up to this, and I don't know much about that. And that's where he looks over at Rick Moranis, goes, go ahead. He pulls it and goes, here you go. It's a jelly.
It's a jelly.
It's a jelly.
It's just sweetening the deal. Like we're bribing her some more. Again,
the whole fact that they give the $15 to the kids, like they said that they're allowed to come see this movie. What am I going to tell them? What am I going to tell them? Here, just take the money, man.
They're like, oh, they're giving refunds. They run away.
He says, yeah, cops, look out, look. And he pulls up his jacket, cover up, but he runs right into one of the cops. It's just stupid stuff like that, man. So awesome.
Them drinking beer at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah,
it's like, and the thing is that, like, you can just hear the writers, the director, or whatever. It's like, so are they like breathing out of? Are they breathing out of the beer bottle? No, They're just
Yeah, they're just drinking beer.
they're just drinking. Do we do a sight gag where there's no air in the there's no water in the van and they've just been sitting in there and it's like airtight? No. Van's fully full of water and they're sitting there with their faces floating in
Yeah.
the in the water. Just all of them are drinking beer. Like, don't even try to get out. Like they could get out. He rolls down his window. They could have gotten out any point. Didn't try.
And they just didn't. They'd rather sit down there and drink beer and wait, I guess.
Like, well, the cops are here. We got to go. Oh, God, dude. Yeah, if you've never seen Strange Brew,
yeah, fix that right now.
yes, go watch it. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I think that is pretty close to an episode.
That's the Strange Brew episode.
Yeah, it is the Strange Brew episode. We tried to go elsewhere, but it's too good. It's too good. It needed its own show.
And not to, I mean, because I know those people. Well, you didn't even mention this. Yeah, I know we skipped a bunch of stuff, but you got to give a little shout out to Kids in the Hall while we're here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, great show. Not a movie, but again, when you think of Canadian comedy, that's just,
yeah.
I think it's fantastic. And you see those guys and everything. So they're kind of like that SCTV group, it branched off and they became these people. Well, those guys kind of did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see them and still see them and stuff.
Yeah, Kids in the Hall was awesome too. I love them. I love the squish your head.
I love the thing is that shows the kid walking outside goes, "Oh, what's that man doing to my donkey?" He goes, "That ain't no man. That ain't no man, son. That's Hitler, and he's elfing your donkey." Crazy.
Just the weird, like, non sequitur stuff that just so dumb. All right, man. Well, I want to close this one down. We'll talk to you next week.
That's right.